Yes, I am. Mhm. Okay, that's good. You could bring Mr. Ruby in if you can, but yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's a great day in Harlem, and this is Cherry Wisdom with Harlem Network News coming to you live. For those of you who are just tuning in, Harlem Network News is a new media news platform here in Harlem that was created at the top of COVID to assure that all of Harlem, the Harlems of the world, urban communities, and the world are informed about what is going on up here specifically. We always give you the inside view of what's happening. A lot of times, the major media does not cover what goes on up here. So we feel it is our duty to assure that people are informed. Knowledge is power. It's been an incredible and powerful week here in Harlem, and of course in the world. There's so much going on, but this is Harlem Network News. Today, we are honored to have our public officials. We have Athena Moore, who is representing our Honorable Borough President Gale Brewer, who is currently attending a funeral, but she will come in later. We have our Honorable Assembly Member Inez Dickens here with us, and we also have Dr. Jaquita Agby, who will do our medical minutes. Um, I wanted to just start off this program with a tribute to an ancestor, and that is a family member. He is the grandfather of my granddaughter, Sahar. His name is Oliver Gray, and he was the associate director for DC 37. We know that he's watching over us, and we look forward to an incredible homegoing today at Benton's here in Harlem at 2 p.m. So blessings, Grandpa Oliver. Thanks for working with me all these years. Yes, my granddaughter is a senior at Howard University, and we have made that happen. And she also had the pleasure of working as an intern with the borough president and with Athena. So it takes a village, and we know that. So it's a blessing. Okay, so
Condolences.
thank you so much. We are going to start off with Dr. Agby and our medical minutes because we just think in this time of COVID, we don't want people to forget what's going on. I know here in New York City, we are in phase 3, but we want people to be informed. Knowledge is power. For those of you just tuning in, this is Harlem Network News. And if you're not able to come into this broadcast because we're a little bit early today, we do keep it up on Facebook so that you will be able to get the information and share it with all of your social media, your base after this time. But Dr. Agby, would you just go in and say a little bit about the medical dynamics of COVID, and particularly since the Black and Brown communities, particularly Harlem, has been the hardest hit, what it is that we can say to people so that they understand what's going on? Because we in the Black and Brown communities are dealing with 3 viruses. One is the pathology of racism. The other is COVID-19. And as it was so eloquently put last week, we're dealing with the pathology of ignorance. So if you could just share what the information is. And I know, Dr. Agby, because you are one of our millennials, that you can say it so that our young people understand what's happening. I don't know that I can eloquently put it, and so that they can really hear. So,
all right. Well, I'll just start with this, right? The pathology of ignorance is very pervasive. It's very pervasive in every, almost, I'll say it's something that it's pervasive in of human nature. Because even though we see, and we all see it, we understand that there is the virus that's out there and it's very real. Despite what people want to say, there's conspiracy theorists that think that maybe the numbers are skewed, or, you know, that it's inadequate reporting, or something's wrong with the test, or it's false positives. People are still being affected and dying from this virus. And there's a lot of confusion because as the numbers, I'm here sitting in Florida, and as the numbers, we had our daily average of 11,000 cases just yesterday or so. And we're still partying up. We're still at pool parties. We're still trying to engage in this social relationship with others, not really realizing that we don't know who has it and who doesn't have it, or where they've been, or how they've been, and how they've been doing it. We have no clue, right? And then you think about the leadership and the government level, where they're still even trying to consider in this state of having children, opening schools for children to enter with the numbers rising. This is the confusion, and this is the pervasiveness of ignorance that I'm talking about. And it's in every factor of our human existence, this, as we speak, right? From the government level to the average person walking down the street. Okay, so I feel like there has to be something where you are sacrificing something at this point. And we see that with New York, with the leadership in New York, when you guys had your outbreak of COVID, right? We've seen that locking down, doing, social distancing, that actually curbed, right? This virus from continuing to spread within the New York City area, Harlem, whatever you want, Brooklyn. And that would be the answer, to be honest. That is the answer. So as we talk about a first wave, second wave, no, forget the waves. The way things are going, we head into a tsunami. That's how I feel. Like, that's what's happening. The more that we're interacting and not trying to sacrifice and just stay at a distance so we can figure out what's going on with this virus, the more everybody's going to end up getting it. And that's what it's going to be. So I think it's something that we should take seriously. You have to, there's going to be another summertime, okay? The summer comes around every year. So if you just sacrifice this time so we can figure out what's going on, then we can save the whole country from undergoing this next wave, which is going to be a really big wave. So that's all I have to say. Hopefully they listen, but I just know that I'm buckled down, and I'll be hidden and I'll come out when I need to come out. So that's how you should be running your life if you care about yourself and your family.
Okay, thank you so much. And obviously, I'm not a medical doctor, but I do believe that, you know, it is being said that a lot of younger people are contracting it between 20 and 40. And there are residuals from this COVID-19 where people are being impacted, their lungs, other organs, you know, brain things that are residuals after COVID. So I think, once again, we have to take it seriously. And I know that a part of human nature is denial of things that we just don't want to deal with. So I also feel, and I'm going to go to Athena Moore, who is representing the Borough President, very quickly, because I think that we have to leave it up to people individually, but in certain instances, I think we may end up to have to roll back and start shutting down the parks or curbing what's happening at the restaurant, because that is something that we can do that can make a difference. So Athena, if you would just share a little bit about what has happened this week in New York City, particularly here in Harlem, and then we're going to segue back and forth between you and Assembly Member Inez Dickens, because there's been so much going on. It feels like it's been a year, and this is in the space of a week. So.
Sure. So, I mean, we've had the pleasure of both, ups and downs this week. Honestly, Terry, the Borough President's Office has been fielding many of the calls expressing concerns about social distancing, about open streets, about the fireworks, as well as the increase in gun violence that has been promulgated in the community of late. But we've also had some good news as well. I know I'll talk a little bit about the murals and the painting of Black Lives Matter on the streets, and the fact that there's now a new street that was renamed Black Lives Matter Boulevard, which the borough president was proud to introduced through legislation with Councilmember Chen down by the African burial ground. And we were involved with efforts uptown with Harlem Park to Park and the various elected officials, including Inez, who's on the line with us, and yes, others, Senator Brian Benjamin, to paint the murals uptown. But what's important to note is that in all of this, it has called upon the community and offices like the borough president to work collectively with the NYPD, to work collectively with the local clergy and community leaders like the Cure Violence groups like Aisha Sekou, and I know we'll talk about that more in terms of Madam Assemblywoman, what you and Gail and others did yesterday with the mayor on that piece. Mm-hmm. But also, it has required that we call in groups that are just on the ground, who we see as our ambassadors, who have to walk with us block by block to take back our streets and to make sure that our communities are taking responsibility for helping to really resolve the issues that are before us. So I'm not going to talk long now because I know we'll go back and forth, but we do see the numbers starting to, drop and then rise again in terms of COVID infections. In New York City, I think the city's COVID tracker said that we had 27,000 confirmed cases. This was as of just Thursday, and 3,100 deaths. And in New York City, 214,000 cases and 23,000 deaths. So the numbers are still high, despite some of the progress that has been had. And as we started talking about before this call, we still have to be very cautious when we're reopening the city. We know we're in the midst of reopening. We know the borough president has been supportive of small businesses trying to open the streets so that they have, an opportunity to have their revenues coming in again. But we have to do it in a way that is responsible and that does not put the community at large at greater risk. And so we're all working on that together, step by step, piece by piece, because it's going to take a village, but it also is going to take a strategic movement forward. So I'll leave it there for now, and I'll definitely come and chime back in again. But we're so excited about what the future holds, and the Black Lives Matter murals were just the beginning. This is just the beginning of a continued visibility beyond the protests that Black Lives Matter. But we have more to do, and it doesn't stop here.
Okay, thank you, Athena. You really touched on several of the talking points, just the responsibility of government, the responsibility of people. COVID-19 has been horrific, but there are blessings that have come within it. Because we've had to shelter in, I believe that we've all gotten more in touch with ourselves. I believe that in a lot of ways we have gotten stronger, and like being able to communicate on Zoom actually has helped with some communication, because I feel that in general times, people would have to either physically go to a community board meeting, which maybe they couldn't make it or couldn't get to it, they would have to call or go to the office of their public officials. But now there is access actually that everyone can have, and they can chime in, they can chat in, and that in itself is very significant. And I think because we have had the horror and we've had the deaths, it's really gotten more of people's attention. And so people have become more proactive when they were maybe complacent or just, you know, things are so overwhelming, but it's in their face, so they're not dealing. For those of you who have just come in, I'm Terry Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And we have with us today some of our incredible Harlem public officials. We just heard from Athena Moore, who is representing the Borough President's office. We had Dr. Jaquita Agby, who always does our medical minutes. And I am now going to go to our honorable Assembly member, Inez Dickens. And if you would just introduce yourself. I know everyone knows you, but I'm not making that assumption. And I know there's always that how long you have been in the body of government and the only woman and so on and so forth. So I always like to hear that because it's encouraging. And if there are young people on the line, these are role models today. So
thank you, Terry, and good and blessed Sunday. Please accept my deepest condolences on your granddaughter's grandfather.
Yes, thank you.
Loss. And I have a question for Jaquita, if it's all right, if I may. And I'm really concerned about this because I wasn't aware of this, but more and more I'm hearing. For instance, there was a New York court officer who contracted COVID-19, and you know, he was very, very ill, but he lost an arm due to the COVID, I was told. Also, there was an actor here in New York who contracted, who subsequently died, who had lost a leg. I have also heard of others who have lost extremities. So you know, which is unusual when you talk about a SARS disease, which COVID-19 is supposed to be a part of. So I wanted to ask Jaquita about that because I was very concerned. You know, you usually hear about the loss of an extremity due to diabetes and other things, but not to a SARS disease. So I'm concerned, and I wanted to ask about that, you know, because that's something that we haven't really focused on. We focused on the fact that we are dying. We focused on the disease itself, but I've been hearing about the loss of limbs. So can you share?
Well, yeah. So yes, it is, and it does belong to. It is a SARS virus. That's acute it causes acute respiratory syndrome. That is just with the lungs. But there's something interesting about COVID itself because it has the affinity not only just to cells within your lungs, it's cells all over your body. So it's attracted to cells all throughout the body. There's certain receptors on your cells. There's receptors that it's attracted to that presents on every cell in your body. So that means any cell is fair game. So we're talking on a cellular level, we're talking about blood vessels, right? The vessels itself are made of cells. Everything in your body is made of cells. Mm-hmm. So when it gets in, it not only attacks any cell that it wants to, but it also can cause a immune response where your entire body, once it realizes it has this this virus within itself, it'll cause an immune response. It's acute immune response where it's just a flood of all these immune cells being released, causing a little bit of what we'll call havoc. Because when you have an immune response, you have T cells and B cells and all these mediators being released all at once. So it could everything is fair game. Heart issues, kidney issues, and now even maybe constricting the blood vessels, causing the loss of limbs. Yeah. So this virus is very interesting because we don't know enough. And as we see more and more people getting infected, then we say, oh, it causes that too. Oh, it causes that too. It's it's mysterious, if you ask me, because it's going to present in different people in different ways. So we don't know. And this is why for our young people that are out there and enjoying and living it up and not realizing how it's going to impact them, they have to be very, very cautious, because not only can it affect them, now they're bringing it to others, you know, within the family, you know, the family household, older people that may be even more impacted. And we know that in the Black community, Black community, Latino, anybody Black and brown, the virus has an impact on us in a much different way, right? So it's just a very mysterious virus. And this is why we have to be careful.
All right, well, I appreciate that answer because, see, even though we were aggressive in New York State and the governor did not open up fast, and he opened up particularly New York City in phases, that the thought that, or the truth that the loss of an extremity can be gotten has not really been focused on. We focused on the deaths, we focused on the lungs, but the young people will, you know, they think a little different. The millennials think a little different, and although they don't want to die from it, they had no idea, such as, well, I'm not a millennial, and I had no idea about the loss of a limb until this 42-year-old actor died, and then they said he had already lost a leg to it, until I saw this court officer who was still working, who got it, and he lost an arm up to his shoulder to it. Wow. He survived, but he lost a shoulder. And there are others. So I wanted to ask you, and I'm glad, I thank you for that answer, because I think that that is something that needs to be publicized, that in addition to the fact of it affecting and impacting the lungs, we need to be told about how you can survive it and lose a limb, lose a foot, lose a leg or an arm or whatever, because that has not been publicized. And I hate to use that word publicized, but because we are now going into phase 4 shortly, and these restaurants, although they're supposed to be practicing social distancing, and that's why they closed off the street to allow them without having to pay all that $3,000 and $4,000 to get a permit. They can go into the streets. There are so many of our restaurants that they're not eating, they're buying drinks and coming outside because you cannot stay inside the restaurant or the bar, and they will have, it's not just the one on Malcolm X Boulevard on 126th Street. Right. It's one in the block at 142nd Street. And there'll be hundreds of people. Yes. And I understand why. But the problem is my fear that they don't understand, because they're all young and they don't understand that they can still contract. They can still get it. And they can still share it, and they can be asymptomatic and give it to somebody else, not just an older person at home. They can give it to a baby, because we had a fireman here in New York City who took it home, didn't mean to, and his 3-month-old baby died. So, you know, we don't understand, and we would fear losing a limb. We may not fear because we may not thoroughly understand, oh, it'll affect your lung. Yeah, how? But we do understand when you talk about a loss of a limb, because that's what caused us to start eating differently. The millennials eat differently, they prepare food differently, because diabetes so impacted upon the Black community that we feared losing a limb. We didn't fear getting diabetes, we feared losing a limb. And so I'm glad that you answered that question. I'm grateful, and thank you for explaining it to me, Jaquita, because that's something I want to constantly share when I do give a speech. I want the young people to understand that it's not just the lung, but that it's the loss of a limb as well. So I'm grateful to you. So thank you, Terry, for allowing me to ask that question. But I also felt that it was important that we have that exposed on the show today, and I will continue to allow people to know additional information because of the confusion with this virus. But yes, we've continued. Yesterday, for instance, we had the mayor came up to Harlem because of the violence, the gun violence that we've been having in Harlem, which has been very unusual. I mean, usually you see this kind of gun violence, unfortunately, in Brooklyn. Harlem is now experiencing it. And we can talk about the various reasons, but the bottom line is we're talking about Black Lives Matter. We're teaching that, we're hollering that, we're talking about that constantly. But does that mean that Black lives only matter when a white police officer kills us? Or are we really trying to educate that Black lives matter all the time? And Black lives matter just as hard when it's Black on Black.
Yes, yes.
Black on Black violence. And that's what I wanted to articulate and get out there, that Black lives matter all the time, not just when a police officer does it, but when we do it to each other. That Black life matters just as much as it does when it's done by a police officer. And we've got to begin to change the dynamics, change the way we're thinking to understand that and realize. And I mean, we can talk about all the socioeconomic reasons as to why it happens and all, but we've got to begin to think for ourselves. If we're going to rely upon society and the white man to educate our history in the schools, that hasn't happened yet. And we've been talking about that for 70 years or more. So we've got to at some point begin to think and educate ourselves within. We talk about the family, but we're talking about the family of the culture, of the world, that we've got to begin to re-educate and redefine and respect one another from within. Because if we don't, we cannot expect that somebody else is going to do it for us, because they're not. Now, with this Black Lives Matter, you had a lot of protests and a lot of demonstrations, which were great. However, it wasn't the Black Lives Matter that led it. There was another dynamic coming in that led those demonstrations. Because when we do it, unfortunately, when any group does it, they do it within their community. This time it affected the white community. They did 34th Street, they did 6th Avenue, they did 5th Avenue, they did Madison Avenue. But the Black communities, for the most part, did not get devastatingly hit as we have done in the past. So this was not a movement that was led by Black Lives Matter. In addition, you referred to the incident that occurred last Saturday when 1,000 white bikers with one Black biker leading it, and they rolled up on the newly painted Black Lives that hadn't dried, and some destruction of it did occur, and a Black SUV that the windows were so tinted, which is supposed to be against the law, so you couldn't see who was inside, and he rolled up on it, or she, whoever was driving that SUV, rolled up on it, and when they were stopped by Park to Park, the 4 strong Black women who stood up for that, when they got out there along with the artists who did the stenciling, the bikers' response was, oh, well, we wanted to destroy whatever de Blasio paid for because he didn't defund the police. Well, it's several things wrong with that.
Absolutely.
One.
Thank you for sharing.
Number one, that mural here in Harlem was not paid for by the city of New York. And if de Blasio did authorize it, it's my tax dollars, it's your tax dollars, it's that tax dollars, everyone's tax dollers that paid for it. It's not de Blasio's money. It didn't come out of his pocket. It came out of all of our pockets. So if he had paid for it, but he didn't. This was paid for by the community, by Park to Park, raising the monies to get this painted and done here in Harlem. That's exactly right. So that's number one. So if it was about de Blasio, then why didn't they go downtown or down to Brooklyn or where on Fifth Avenue by Trump Tower or someplace in there? They didn't do that. They came to the one here in Harlem that was paid for by Black people. Now, so that was number one. Number two, yes, I agree with defunding the police, but not totally. You have to have a police force in a city as large as New York City. Now, what it has to be, it has to have some changes because there's no mutual respect. And it's not going to be done, even though we need the summer youth jobs, even though we need to have the street closings and have the hydrants put on, and we need basketball hoops put in and maintained all summer long. All that is true. But it's not going to change until there is a mutual respect. Don't have to be a love, just a respect of one another. The police has to respect our culture, our history, and the people. And then we will respect them in exchange. So it has to be a quid pro quo, if you will, of understanding and respect. And that's not gonna merely come with defunding the police. It's not merely going to come with putting up a basketball hoop. It's not merely going to come by closing off the street. It's got to be a complex thing, and part of that means I advocate that the CO of a precinct should be there a minimal of 5 years. Now what happens? They move them up and they take them out in 2 years. They don't get to know the community. They sit in their office. They've got to be mandated as the CO to at least once a week go and walk and they can be driven to different blocks and walk up and down those blocks, get to know the mothers, the fathers, get to know the kids, get to know who they are, and get to know the electeds, meet with the electeds once a month. When I was in the city council, I used to meet monthly with the 2-6, the 2-8, the 3-2, and sometimes the 3-0, because those were the precincts in my community, in my district, and I met with them monthly. They all came, the COs from each of those precincts, met with me in my office once a month so that we could go over what was going on in the community, where there were hot spots, where they were anticipating problems, who were the problem makers. I could sometimes say, wait a minute, that block may have a problem, but the tenants and the residents in those blocks, they don't want a problem. They want to have a block party. So, you know, but that's not happening anymore. That's not going on anymore. And so, during the COVID, they can still do it through a Zoom meeting. And yes, each precinct has a precinct council, community council, where they meet once a month, but it's once a month, the same, maybe on the fourth Thursday of each month or whatever. And they're not well attended. They're not advertised. That's number one. Number two, it could be inconvenient on a Thursday night, because if you got a single mother or a single father raising a child, and when they come in from work, they got to cook dinner, they got to wash clothes, they got to get the kid prepared for school the next day. I mean, there were a lot of issues why they could not necessarily attend those council meetings, but a Zoom meeting like you talked about,
yes.
Terry, is something that can be done. And this COVID did open that aspect up, although yes. There's many of us that still don't have a computer or a laptop. So yes. I want to bring that in, and we don't have free Wi-Fi
yes.
the Black and brown community. So there's a lot of things that we can talk about with all of that. But I believe that the COs need to be there a minimal of 5 years. In addition, when you have the chief of the Manhattan North, she needs to be meeting with the electeds, and not monthly, but she needs to be meeting with them at least quarterly, with all the electeds, including the borough president and the electeds in each area. Say in northern Manhattan, if she wants to do Washington Heights, East Harlem, West Harlem, and meet with the electeds in those groups with the borough president or the borough president's staff, and go over what's going on, what she's anticipating, what's happening. Are there hotspots? Are you seeing a change? And I think that would be the beginning. In addition, we need to go back to not more policing, but community policing. And I think that because, see, you'd be surprised, a lot of people, they know, because even if I'm out there shooting, if I get shot, damn if I don't want the police to come and call the ambulance. Trust me, I do. You know, whether I talk about defunding them or not, I do. And the other thing is, I want to go back to that, to this, the demonstrations and whatnot, the takeover of the City Hall, to me was similar to takeover of Wall Street that happened several years ago.
Yes.
And I got a call from the late Bill Lynch, who said that the takeover Wall Street people had asked to have a meeting with me. I was in the city council at the time. They asked to have a meeting with me, and I agreed to the meeting. And they wanted to know why the blacks from Queens and the blacks from Brooklyn had joined up, but not the blacks from Harlem. And I told them, as I'm seeing and feeling now, I said, you know, you're walking around here with a laptop and an iPhone, and I got a flip phone. I got a flip phone. And you're gonna tell me this is about my issues? It's not about my issues. It's not about the black issues. What this is really about, you want us in so it looks inclusive, but this is about the issue that you're mad at your parents. You're mad that you don't have the jobs. You're mad that you have a big debt for going to college. Now, all of that is valid. I'm not saying that it's not valid, but the thing is, be honest and come out and say, that's what the agenda. Don't use the black issue as the cover and say, that's really what we're interested in. Now, some people were and are. In this situation that we had recently, some are, some join, but if you look at every demonstration, it was 80% white.
Yes.
And 20% or less black and brown. Now, like I said, I welcome help, but I don't welcome the takeover, because then my agenda gets lost in the mix. My agenda gets lost in the soup. So, you know, I'm just being honest about that. And you appreciate the help, but there's something else to that. And I maybe just don't have all the answer yet, but there's something else. Just like it was, if we found out with the takeover, the Wall Street, we're going to find out maybe in a year or two. And I spoke I had Melba Wilson to speak to Joy for me. For some information, because Joy was doing, and Joy Reid, who recently, and I congratulate her, she recently has, and I tuned in this morning at 10 a.m. She had her own show on, yeah, and so MSNBC, and so it was so exciting to see her on her own show, but she was doing an investigation on these protests and these demonstrations to get to the bottom of it, because she had some suspicions and she wanted to know. So I wasn't alone in that. So I was calling Joy to get information to see what did the Joy Reid intel have to say.
Okay.
So, you know, but yeah, and then we've continued.
Okay.
I'm grateful to the borough president, because actually she did phenomenal. She got the Fresh Direct connected with all of the borough presidents and provided food every week to every borough president in the city, the 5 boroughs, to be able to distribute food, particularly to the NYCHAs and the senior buildings. And I'm grateful to Athena for heading that up and working so hard to get that done. Also, District Leader Keith Lilly brought in the farmers market from downtown, and he shared fresh fruits and fresh vegetables with all of the electeds in Harlem and West Harlem and East Harlem. And we were able to pick up boxes and boxes and boxes and distribute it in all of our individual districts. I also am grateful to the Brooklyn Borough President, because in his share with Fresh Direct, he sent over some of his to me directly, and I was able to give it out to HCCI senior buildings as well. And so Lloyd Williams of the Chamber of Commerce, he was able to get a program at the church on 129th and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, Salem.
Yes, Salem.
And they distributed food once a week. Donald Notice of the West Harlem Group Assistance, I was grateful to him because I got him to set a pop-up at A. Philip Randolph on 114th Street. He also did a pop-up at Drew Hamilton on 143rd Street, and we're doing a pop-up at St. Nicholas. And also, I was able to get him to do a memorandum of understanding so that the families of Fred Sam's NYCHA could go once a week, and no one else would be in his place, and they would be able to get their groceries and fresh vegetables and fruits. Just them. There's people, as long as you lived every day he did the whole community, but one day a week he did just Fred Sam. So I'm grateful to, all of that. Also, the Brooklyn Muslim group approached me, and they came in and cooked halal meals, fresh to order on 114th Street.
Wow.
And then I have another group from Brooklyn that's working with me to do Taft. I also did, I was able, with the help of Fresh Direct, I did Lincoln, and I was also blessed to be able to help 3333 Broadway, which is not a NYCHA, but it's huge, a senior building on 140th Street between Adam Clayton Powell and Malcolm X, and the senior building that used to be Sydenham Hospital on 124th and St. Nicholas.
Okay. I think we just lost
Manhattanville. And at each of them, I gave, but I also gave out sanitizers and masks. At every site I gave out food, I gave out sanitizers. I'm also giving sanitizers to churches. So that Convent Avenue Baptist, also Antioch, Friendship, Abyssinia, to a lot of the churches in my community, I gave out the large bottles with a pump to them for as they begin to slowly open up to be able to.
Assembly member Inez Dickens, I mean, amazing, incredible, and I think some of the points that you made are so poignant, okay? Just even in terms of breaking down the Black Lives Matter and the inclusion in Harlem and the importance of us and our leadership here in Harlem. And for those of you who are just tuning in, this is Harlem Network News, and I'm Terry Wisdom. I'm here with our public officials, our honorable Assembly member, Inez Dickens, who has been a part of Harlem public officials as long as I can remember, and a woman standing strong. We have Athena Moore, who is the chief of the Northern Manhattan office for the Borough President Gale Brewer. And that's a very, very significant thing. The fact that we have a storefront office of the Borough President here in Harlem is incredible, is significant. It makes a difference. People have access. And Gale Brewer, our Borough President, is an amazing, amazing woman. There's not a place you go that you don't see our Borough President. Right. I mean, she's even on a bicycle up in NYCHA. She's downtown. There's nothing that she misses. And she is a strong woman as well. She makes it plain. She says what she has to say, and she puts action behind what she's talking about. And that is what is making a difference. But as you can see, we live in a very complex world. And even the Black on Black crimes, Assembly member Al Taylor, he was supposed to join us today. And he is a reverend as well. And he just sent me a message, and it was good afternoon. I'm headed to a funeral at Stephen Johnson, a shooting victim. So this is what we are dealing with up here. But I feel that the black on black crime, there's no excuse for it, but it is a part of the greater systemic racism. It's an offshoot of it. It's why people are locked down, people are stressed, people are pressed, people in terms of identity, self-love. I mean, there are all of these factors. So there are layers and layers and layers and layers of it. But education is at the key of it. Our schools here, that was another topic, and we can't even talk about all the things that we need to address, but our schools are more separate and not equal than they were coming out of civil rights and busing. I mean, the schools in Central Harlem are 99.99% Black and brown children. I mean, we have done programs at Harlem Hospital with our Library and Mural Foundation. And honestly, there's 600 kids, and there may have been 2 white kids. So that tells you something in terms of, if there's gentrification in Harlem, where are the children? They're not in the schools. They're concentrated in a couple of the schools in Harlem, maybe the French school, Harlem Hebrew, the public school on 120th, but they are not in the schools. And it showed up when we had the pandemic happen and the children had to go to virtual school. It showed up the fact that our kids in our public schools, they don't have a tablet. That's not something that's given to them. There might be some computers in the school that are locked up on a thing, and then they use it at a certain time. So they were at a super disadvantage. 3 times, number 1, they didn't have a tablet. Number 2, they're not used to learning on a tablet because they didn't have one. Number 3 is not universal Wi-Fi. So even if they got a tablet, which a lot of them got it late, they couldn't get on it because they didn't have Wi-Fi. There are children who are living in the shelter. We saw that story where the parent was, the children were 3 of them, trying to get on the Wi-Fi off a hotspot on their phone, which went down because they had a flip phone. So these are some of the things that we're dealing with that deal with the disparities that are happening here. They are multi-layered, and I'm in agreement when we said that, you know, the Black Lives Matter murals had happened. I salute you for discussing that situation, and you discussed it so succinctly, Inez, because a lot of people don't know that there were authorized Black Lives Matter murals in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. They were not authorized and paid for here in Harlem. They were paid for in front of Trump. They were paid for downtown, mm-hmm. in front of the court, adjacent to the burial ground. That's great. But this is Harlem. Harlem is the mecca of Black people. Why wasn't there one authorized up here? But this was us coming from the grassroots, going from the roots, and just saying, which I heard Brian Benjamin say at our state senator, that we need a Black Lives Matter mural up here. And that is why he and Gale Brewer assisted Park to Park, who had the vision, who put the money together. Mm-hmm. You know, 4 Black women. The organization has been about, I'm hoping to have them on, about 10 years. It's been, you know, NACOA. It has also been Trinez, who comes to Sylvia's Restaurant, yes, and a few others. I don't have everybody's name.
Beatrice Sibley's and, yes. And also Erica Ewing.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, that was amazing. And the fact that they were able to put that mural together, it's on 2 sides of the street. I know there's talk about it being a permanent mall where cars don't go over. I mean, this is amazing. This was put together. It's the most beautiful one in the city. And I guess I'm a little prejudiced because I'm in Harlem, but it's amazing. The artists did it. Incredible. But just whatever the dynamics are, and I know that they are smart women. They are humble women. They are majority millennium women. And even when the bikers, I don't know if it was 1,000, 4,000, a truck, whatever it was, when they came up there to roll over, they tried to defend. I believe the bikers were pushing and shoving them, which is unacceptable. I also know that the police were nowhere to be found. What is that about? You know what I'm saying? So we got to question, we got to dig deeper, that how could something like this happen? And how could white people come to Harlem shouting Black Lives Matter and destroy something that was created by the grassroots Black people and paid for? And like you said, Inez, it doesn't matter if the mayor paid for it or not, because it's not the mayor's money, it's our money. So we have a lot of concerns, we have a lot of issues. I'm glad we're speaking about this here on the air, because I know I saw on NBC a 1 minute, 30-second piece that said something like, oh, bikes came up and they did this, but it wasn't to the magnitude of what really happened. And it's important that we understand that something like this could happen, that we could be attacked. This is another knee on our neck. That's what it is. And there was nobody there to protect us but ourselves. So this is a real, this is a very real concern. And this is why we must take back our street corners. We've got to take initiative. And it's hard for us to take initiative because the other situation is the economic marginalization. You know, and when you don't have those economics and you have to find it, but we are creative people, we are survivors. You know, we survived slavery, the Middle Passage, everything. So we will and we can do it. Athena, would you like to just share in terms of some of the other things that have gone on this week? Yes.
Sure. I just wanted to mention, you know, in support of what we've already started talking about with the NYPD, Terry, after you raised the concern about the murals uptown, we did reach out also to the 28th precinct to ask for an investigation and to ask what the status was and what did they know about what transpired. But the issue was that they said, this particular officer said, well, they weren't even informed. So you could imagine what I felt when I heard that, because I'm saying, you know, you're the entity that is supposed to be here to defend and to protect and to investigate. And how could a community member be coming with all of this detail and you have no clue that it's taking place, right? And so that also speaks to the need, going back to our early discussion about the officers knowing the community and being there and getting information that matters, so that when these incidents happen, they have intelligence, and that intelligence can be used strategically to then help and defend our communities. More of that has to happen, and we can't lose ground because we've lost so much ground.
I'm sorry, Athena, I don't mean to interrupt. This is Harlem Network News, and coming to you live, I'm Terry Wisdom. We're going to be closing soon, but please go to our website. Please make a donation. It will help us. If you have ideas for funding, if you have ideas for stories, please share them. But on the note that you were saying, Athena, about intelligence, I was out there on Saturday evening because I kept checking on the mural and interviewing the people and just feeling the energy. I was there. And on Saturday, there were 40 officers in the block of 126. They were sitting, they were talking, they were whatever. Okay, I don't know if they were there when this incident happened, but what I do know from being involved with businesses up here and restaurants and everything else, I know one of the restaurants that I did marketing for, we once were going to have an event and it was bikers, you know, motorcycle bikers, and most of them were police officers, Most of them were people that were over 50, and they wanted to have a gathering. And before the gathering even happened, a patron of the restaurant who was friends with the community police, she had the community police person call us, and they told us, do not have that party, because if you do, there'll be 500 cops out here.
Right.
Because bikers is not something that happens. So trust me, I'm not a police officer, but they have intelligence. There's no way 1,000 bikers could ride from downtown in New York
and
City
someone not
and
know.
nobody
Right.
in the police.
Right.
No,
And
that
Terry,
is not the case.
Terry,
That's
you
the
hit
point.
upon
That's
something. Peter said something that was salient, and you hit upon it. And that is New York City Police has intel.
Yes,
State
they do.
has intel, and the feds have intel. Now let's
They're on our cell
they
phone.
all have intel, and I found out about this. The bike is coming up from Gale Brewer. Gail gave me a call because she heard that they had gone up the West Side Highway, and then they went up to 155th Street and then came south on Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. Now, you said something you went over it, Terry, quickly.
Okay.
But a lot of the bikers are police officers.
Yes. Yes.
Correction officers, they are bikers. And the question is, who were these bikers and where did they come from?
Right. Yes. And the instance that I was talking about with the restaurant and the bike party, most of these bikers, and some of them were police officers, but they were Black. So, that
there is a black cycle club.
Yes.
But it's a much larger and many more white clubs.
Yes.
There is a black club of cyclists. Oh yes, there is. I have a friend that
open up. Yes, absolutely.
And he was police, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm just saying we have some great concerns.
Oh, Gail is chiming in
Yes,
now.
and our honorable borough president is coming in. We're going to let her close out. Obviously, there are many things that we need to address. And I loved what you said, Athena, when you said we have the murals. That's a beginning. It puts us in a mindset. However, there are things that have to be done. We're looking for Gale Brewer, our borough president, to be unmuted and let us see her. But one of the things that I wanted to say is that people are being proactive, and there are events coming up. I want to share that on the 15th, there is a rally, and I will make sure that I put this in the chat. The associate pastor, Reverend Reginald Backus, sent it to me, but there is going to be a rally and a march for Black businesses, having equity and access to capital. Business people and churches are going to be involved in that. That's on the 15th. I don't know the time.
It's at 12:30. It's going to start at the African Burial Ground, and it's been put together by the Harlem Business Alliance, which is Walter Edwards, as well as others, and the churches that are involved, such as Abyssinia, and other churches are involved, and other business organizations are also involved, and they're going to march from there to City Hall. And what that's going to do is to demand increased contracts and employment.
Okay. So all of these incredible things are happening, as we say in Millennium World, and everybody says it. Everybody is staying woke now. They're getting to all the meat of what has to happen. Because no matter how many murals we paint, if we don't change the economic divide and the inclusion of the economics, if we don't change the educational divide, none of this, it's just a symbol. But it's okay, because it started in the mind, now it's going to the symbol, it's going to the action. Also, other things that are happening on Thursday at 7 o'clock on a Zoom, the Park and Recreation Committee for Community Board 10 is having a second meeting of a subcommittee where they are working with the exonerated 5 to be able to put together a monument in Central Park. So that's been an amazing discussion, and the public is invited. we will be putting that in also. I know that the Abyssinian Baptist Church on Tuesday has something called Good Grief that Dr. Henry McCurtis, who is a psychiatrist here in the community, will be leading, because so many people have had loss. That is also free. You can go to the Abyssinia website and you can go into that and really be able to begin some of this healing. There's also a meeting of Black men that's happening on Thursday, led by Dr. Reverend Calvin O'Butts, saying it could have been me. So there's a lot of activity that is going on. The International African Arts Festival, which has in its 49th year, they will be doing a part 2. It was supposed to be this Saturday, but it'll be this coming Saturday. And they are dealing with a lot of cultural, but they're bringing in the politics and the medical and everything, because it does begin with culture. Changing the mindset is educational, but it's with culture. So without further ado,
I want to add to that, Terry. I think it's on the 18th. There's going to be a census caravan.
Caravan.
Yes, a census caravan. And Gail will tell about it then.
Okay. So thank you, Honorable Borough President Gale Brewer, for coming in. This has been an amazing information session. Knowledge is power, and that is what Harlem Network News is about. We have gone over so many things, Gail, and you've been at the helm of a lot of it. So if you would just give a brief overview, and I know you didn't hear everything we said, but I know that you did in spirit. So just let us know what's been going on and what things are happening that are pertinent to the community and to New York.
I want to thank you, Terry Wisdom, because your, I would say, professional reporting, journalism is amazing. And you show up everywhere. You are not just Harlem News Network, you're like the reporter par excellence. So I just want to say congratulations, because not everybody does that. And as Inez Dickens knows, and certainly Tina Moore knows, there's no substitute for that hard work. So congratulations.
Thank you.
It's much appreciated and certainly recognized. So I've just come from Stefan Johnson's funeral. He's the 23-year-old who was killed on July 5th.
Wow.
And I would say Chaplain Mice and Reverend Richardson gave a very wonderful preachings and discussions of his life, and of course, stop the gun violence. And Inez and Athena's friend and everybody's friend, Jackie Rowe Adams, was there. And of course, the bad news is she's got many more members of her group, Harlem Mothers Save. It's not a group that you want to be part of, but she was there. She's got, I think Inez, she said she had 3 more funerals this week that she's going to be attending.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got to.
You know, in case you didn't know, Bobby Hunter lost his son.
Yep. So it's just off. Anyway, the family's very great, very committed, and it was a very lovely service, if there is such a thing. So anyway, that's why I'm late. So a couple of things that are happening. First of all, we have on Tuesday, one of the big issues is childcare as we go back to work.
Oh,
and I know that the way that DOE is opening, I think it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of timing and days here in school and the hybrid and so on, but just generally childcare. So Tuesday night at 6:30, a Zoom. Columbia University has been very generously working with us on all different topics, the arts, small business, and so on. So this is one with them and with us. It's all on our website. But I just want to say the people who will be joining us are experts and hopefully will give us some understanding. The papers today are full of childcare centers that want to open, but they only had a few days notice. And in order to make their space safe, they need more time, they need more support, they need more education, they need more information. They say that, not us. And so anyway, childcare is a huge issue.
Thank you.
The second thing, of course, is I want to thank the public library, as we always do. They have this book program, which we have been doing from the top of Manhattan to the bottom, because they, with us, give out food. And so we've been doing this, as you know, with Fresh Direct since the middle of March, actually. and they give out the books as we give out the food. And it's very, very special. We are going to be continuing that all next week. So I just want to be sure you know how much we appreciate the library. And as the Assembly member mentioned, July 18th, the census is still a challenge. We actually sent out postcards to the lowest performing census tracts in the borough of Manhattan. And guess what? Harlem is not. It's the East Side. It's the Village.
Wow.
It's the East Side and the Village. They're doing the worst because they're not here and they're not filling them out. And so they could really screw us up, for lack of a better word, in terms of the filling out and getting the funding. $2,700 per child is what we get per year. If you add that times 10 and the children, it's a lot of money. So it's crazy not to fill it out. That's just one example of the funding. There's many others. So we'll get you more information about the caravan, but we're planning that for July 18th. And the other thing is the US Census has individuals who can come to your event with a laptop and help you fill out the census at that moment. Because I think that's also very important, because some of us, you get it in the, you know, a flyer, you get something in the mail and you're like, oh, I'll do it later. But if you're standing right there with a laptop and a person who's gonna help you fill it out, then you might actually do it. So we, August 11th or the 13th, I can't remember, so the census people start knocking on your door. So really you have a month to get this thing filled out. So that's why we're doing the caravan. And then I just wanna mention how much I appreciate the murals. Obviously, there's the one on 125th. And when folks come down for the business rally, which is incredibly important for small businesses, Black-owned businesses, the murals which you, Terry, so kindly came down for are there. And they go, as you know, from Chambers to Worth on Center Street, right around Foley Square, so right near the African burial ground. So I hope people will come see them. We'll have flyers. We'll invite the artists. I don't know if they can come back, and we'll invite Black Lives Matter, which of course is the New York branch, and they too are very much a part. And their logo is one of the amazing murals that is painted there. I just want to say how much we appreciate these artists. I mean, they, three of them, one per word, each, as you know, with their own reasoning. It's public art at the best. And no cars are allowed until July 17th or 18th. So we have another week to be able to see it without cars, because once the cars come, it doesn't have the same shine because of the tires. I hope that people get a chance to see it. I'm also excited because, as you know, we work with a group out of the South Bronx, and they took such care to paint every single artistic design into the asphalt. So it's something that takes your breath away. So I hope people will see that in general, but certainly when they're there for the rally. And then just finally, I think the other big issue is, how do schools open? I know that you've been talking about this, but we didn't have a great, to be honest with you. You'll hear a lot of accolades, but I don't think the hybrid, meaning those that were home, went extremely well. There were challenges in terms of devices, challenges in terms of internet, challenges in terms of teaching. And yes, DOE got up and running as quickly as they could, but we're going to be focusing on the schools in Manhattan and District 5 in particular, because it is, I want to say it's a crime. That's the best word I can use. We were obviously with the Assembly member and others yesterday, last night at 7 o'clock, and the mayor and Senator Benjamin and Assembly member Al Taylor, talking about the streets and taking over corners and the great street corner resources. But to me, there were some young people, of course, who spoke brilliantly because they had figured out, to their credit, how to have a great education. We have got to get these schools improved. And those young people who were speaking actually didn't have to go through this pandemic academically. They were already in college in some cases. So we have to have better schools. And it's not clear to me what the after school, it's not clear to me about social workers, it's not clear to me about devices and internet and all of that wasn't clear to us last time. So it's really important to focus on that, I would say. And then we're also going to work on jobs. I know that's something that certainly the Assembly member works incredibly hard on, day in and day out. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being so many different places. Thank you for HNN, and we look forward to working with you.
One more thing, Gail, I want you to add, because this was your topic, and that was mental health in the schools. You know, you have fought over the years for that, and I just wanted you to, you know, mention that a little bit about that, your mental health fight. And I want you to also mention, Gail, about the open, at the last minute, they're being asked to send out a survey. Parents need, so they don't know how to do it. Can you please address that for just a
No, I appreciate that. Yes, forever we have, when Inez and I were in the city council, why don't we have social workers culturally appropriate in every single school? We don't need part-time people. Right now, we have these crisis management social workers in a lot of the schools. That doesn't make any sense, particularly now after the, you know, the many different kinds of pandemics we're all facing. So I was very nice on this. I didn't say anything into the microphone
very nice,
last night, but I did want to.
I was scared to death when you took that, when you stood up there. So,
we have, not to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. That's it, Terry. I feel very strongly about it.
We have a lot of issues. We have a lot of issues, and we really have to take them one by one. And I'm glad that the mayor has come up for the street corner and us taking back the street corners. But I really believe that he has to be more engaged, boots on the ground, particularly in the Black and brown communities, to really make a difference. Because there's a lot being said, but what is being said has to be done. I know that there's an economic, not an economic, but a committee on racism and equality and so on and so forth that the First Lady, Charlene McCray, is heading, but we don't have a lot of details about it. And I feel like community people must be involved in that program, knowing about it, giving the ideas for what is going to work. That is inclusion. It is not like people that are not in the community doing it. And granted, the violence that's happening, and Aisha Sekou has done an amazing job, and she's been doing this job way before the pandemic. Yes. But this community is broader than that, and you can't just hit at the violence without hitting at all the rest of the things, the cultural underpinnings. I mean, I had the privilege of working with the Borough of Manhattan Community College with a College Now program, and we had some of the children in our program, in our storefront, that were from the best schools here in Harlem, Frederick Douglass, you know, at Academy 2, Philip Red, you know, we had some of the best students, and even in those schools, they were still fighting that war of the quality of education. So we've got to figure that out. Last but not least, this is Harlem Network News. I'm Terry Wisdom, and please go to harlemnetworknews.com. We put up stories every day on that. We do everything we can with Facebook, and we're interviewing as many people. We're going to be interviewing the Park to Park group. We also are going to be interviewing the leaders of Black Lives Matter. Congressman Espiat was not able to be here today, but he has been another person that has been everywhere. And I need a shot of the street corner because I missed that. I wasn't sure where it was when you unveiled the street. I was at the mural, and then you know how it is downtown. I was driving, so by the time I came around all the blocks that go one way, you know, I missed it. And I was looking online, I can't find it. I didn't see it on your website, but I'll probably go down there and just get a shot, but I wanted to see the reveal. And then lastly, I know that we are doing the contract tracing and testing and everything to get ahead of the COVID-19, but probably it has to be more than that. It has to be the educational process. You know, even as I'm saying that there's all these people at the restaurants and bars, maybe that's a site where the census people can be out there and just get those people right on the spot, because there's lots of people out there. So, you know, I just think we've got to get some strategic, cohesive plans, because some of the things that work in other communities don't work in our community. So, you know, the question is, how do we strategically get ahead of it? But I really feel the mayor has to get very, very involved. And, you know, obviously, Honorable Gale Brewer, you are very, very involved, and you're seeing and you're hearing. So all of those connections, and Inez Dickens, you all are boots on the ground here. So all of those things can probably help to like bring together some programming, you know, and some actual things that are going to work, and also just listening to what the issues of the people are. That is very, very critical, and involving the people, you know, for what's going to work. So I don't know anybody who would like to just give a little feedback.
You know what, contact tracing, it's a Latina who's heading it up. She's former city council member Annabelle Palmer. And because I've also heard fear from within the community about it, I think that it might be a good idea that if one day she comes on the program to explain.
Yes, I'm going to try to get on.
And to hear
yes.
what you just said about going into the spots where people are located.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. And I know she's, I believe that she's in charge of equity. And I do also want to say that Dr. Ted Long, who was on the Borough President, he was also very receptive, because I reached out to him on that, you know, town hall, and he actually emailed me back that same night at 11 o'clock. So, I mean, I think that there's an openness, but I think that there's got to be some real direct connection, because once again, you know, people are afraid, people are leery, some people don't want to get tested, you know, and then some people, like if the health department starts calling them, you know, if they don't have the citizenship or something, they may not want to answer because they're thinking, well, I don't know what's going to happen to me next. And this is different. We did well with AIDS, you know, with the contact tracing, and probably with tuberculosis, but this is a different kind of thing. You know, when AIDS came about, it was like way scary, and, you know, and this is way scary too, but I'm not sure technically why it's different, but it's different. So it's maybe because it's going across a broader scope of people, you know what I'm saying? And whatever the intertwinings are. So I'm not sure. So I thank you all for coming on. You all are amazing. And it's incredible that, you know, the COVID is bad, but the fact that we can be on Zoom and that we can talk and that we can connect in a different way, that's powerful. And I'm going to just have our Dr. Daquita Agby, because she's a millennium, and I believe that as she gets on here, she takes it all in, and then she can take it all back. So if you would just say like a closing little statement.
I'll say a closing. So, you know, I am going to speak out to, can I speak to the millennials? Can I speak to those that are still involved in this Black on Black crime? There's a movement happening, right? This is not the first movement for our people, but we should not allow it to go in vain. Right? It's a beautiful thing to see murals being painted. It's a beautiful thing to see streets being renamed under Black Lives Matter. And we've had that already. There's tons of Malcolm X Boulevards and MLK Boulevards. But if it's just a symbol with nothing behind it, then it's in vain, right? And so it's a mindset change. Right? So if I have to speak in the words of Harriet Tubman and say, we could free thousands and millions of slaves if they only knew that they were enslaved. Okay? So it's a mind trickery. No love in our community, so therefore we don't understand love. If we don't understand love, then that's when we go up against each other, not knowing that it's us that pull each other up out of the wilderness, out of the darkness. It's us, it's the people that are around you in your community. And if you look at ourselves as individual little cells, right, in our country as a body or organism, right, really, and each part of it, each state, each county are vibrating organs, right? It's like the little things can cause a disease. These little things within our frameworks can cause a disease and destroy a society and a community. So it's each of our parts to breathe life into ourselves. And if we can't do it, we reach out to those. We have a panel, wonderful, beautiful women that are leaders within the communities and are offering support and help. And you just have to see it. It's just a matter of time. It's 400 years of having someone's knee on your neck, right? And we're freeing it. This is the part where we're taking that off and we're having support. And so we have to gravitate to that. We have to make use of it. COVID is real, right? It's something that is not gonna go. As long as we out there doing things that we shouldn't and not sacrificing, it's not gonna go away. This is something that's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse. And we see that it's a disease that is bringing up the ills of our society as well as the good. And in order for us to have a place where we're not worrying about whose son got killed and being at funerals because people are dying from violence, it's time to change all of that. And the change is going to happen. There's 400 years of that, 500 years of that. It's going to take another couple, hopefully not hundreds of years, but if we're working together, we can make this happen. So I just want to leave at that.
Thank you so much, Daquita. And I just love having you here because I think it's important that we have that young voice, and it's a mixing of the generations, and that is important to how we will be able to move forward. So Inez, if you would in 30 seconds take the night and goodbye to people in just one word.
I thank the community for coming out last night and joining us as we took back the corner at Malcolm X Boulevard and 142nd Street. It was important, and the young people, as Gail mentioned, the young people spoke, and they spoke from the heart, and they spoke their fears and their disappointments, and it's good to listen to them because they have something to say. And just as we elders feel that we can teach them, we can also learn from the young people. They are our future. Without them, we have no future. So I want to thank you, Mother Earth, for having this, hosting this, and continuing to rise to the top, to give important, critical, crucial, and honest reporting. That's something that hasn't been done. So I thank you.
Thank you so much, Athena, Northern Manhattan Chief of Staff for the Borough President.
Thank you, Terry. You always wonderfully elevate me. I appreciate you, though. As director of the Northern Manhattan office, it's been a pleasure being with you. I just want to remind us that we are here collectively together in this fight, whether we talk about the civil unrest and the continuation of demonstrations, or we're talking about how we continue to plan for reopening in a way that's safe and healthy for our communities. Harlem Network News has always been a vehicle for getting the word out and the message to those on the ground, and we continue to support the efforts and all that we do in public service. So thank you for having us here today.
Okay, thank you. And Honorable Borough President Gale Brewer, come take us home.
Thank you very much, Terry, for all of your efforts. And I want to echo what you said and what the Assembly member said in terms of the young people. I think this is a very exciting generation. And, you know, they now have under their belt, so to speak, the pandemic of health, the pandemic of racial, and the pandemic of economic, because all three they are going to be able to conquer. And that kind of, you know, ability to survive is not something that at least I didn't go through. And so I think that this is a generation that's going to lift us all up. And I congratulate you on bringing not just a generation, but highlighting the generation and appreciating the generation. And I think that's where we have to put our efforts. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. This is Cherry Wisdom, and we're going to close out. This is Harlem Network News coming to you live. And please go to our harlemnetworknews.com. There will be updates. We will continue to keep you informed. And I thank all of you for taking time on this great Sunday in Harlem to come on the show and to inform the people. And please share and tie in, and we'll just try to keep the information flowing. The conversation has started, and that is what counts. So Harlem Network News, come in people, donate if you have stories, information, please share it with us and we'll get it out there. So have a beautiful rest of the day, and I look forward to seeing you at all the events this week that are coming up. All of us are busier than we have ever been, and I'm inspired. I was in high school and college in the late 60s to early 70s, and I think that the circumstances, and I don't remember who said it, if it was Malcolm X or Marcus Garvey, but the conditions are what bring us to what we have to do. And, you know, the conditions of COVID have done that. You know, in my generation, the conditions of Vietnam War and all those things and civil rights things and all of the assassinations, it brought us to the table because it was happening, and it was happening in front of us and to us. And that's what's happening now. So that is why there's so much activity. And we haven't even talked about the elections, but that's another time and another space. But stay vigilant, stay informed, stay blessed, and vote and do the census, and just try to get as much information as you can. The information is there. So thank you, Terry Wisdom, and have a blessed day. And blessings to all those who are our new ancestors through COVID, gunshot. You know, we know you're looking over us and you're going to help to guide us. And a special blessing to our family member, Oliver Gray, my granddaughter's grandfather, who we will funeralize at 2 o'clock today. So have a blessed day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.